Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to You Choose Sundays. We're back after Easter Sunday, and it's good to be back. And I'm here with Marilyn Langeman. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Ayana.
It's really good to have you here today. We're going to have a really good conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I think that this conversation is going to be not just good for you and I, because everybody knows, anybody who's watched the show, I always say, this is very selfish of me. Like, I'm always talking to people who I would just want to talk to in real life and be friends with anyway. But I know this conversation will be good for other people too. So before we dive right into what we're talking about today, and let me put up your banner, I just want to tell people how we met. So why don't you introduce yourself first, and then I'll talk about how we met.
Okay, well, my name is Marilyn Langeman, and I grew up in Manitoba, Canada. I moved to Lancaster County in 1970 because I wanted to work as a volunteer for an organization called Mennonite Central Committee. After many different jobs with Mennonite Central Committee and some others, I retired to Landis Homes with my husband, and we have been very happy here. We are living in a community with a lot of other people that are still in good health and very active. And I have 2 sons and 1 daughter-in-law and 3 grandkids. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
I am too. Why don't you tell everyone, just in case they don't know where that county is, tell us what state you're in.
I'm in Pennsylvania. Lancaster County is known for Amish and horses and buggies, which is very true. If I go out my door, I am right next to a field, and this is a great place to visit and to live in.
Good. So Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I'm right outside of Detroit in a really small city called Wyandotte in Michigan. And if you're watching, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, why don't you go ahead and let us know where you're watching from? Because I'm seeing that sometimes we have people from all over the country, and I love to see that. So Marilyn, the way you and I became acquainted and why I thought it was so very important to have you on today. So you and I both were on a panel, a DEI panel, and for those of you who don't know, diversity, equity, and inclusion panel, and we were talking with folks who are in the aging services industry, and this panel was put together by Leading Age. So we were all on this panel talking about our experiences and how we could really move the needle forward, especially where diversity, equity, and inclusion is concerned, especially in aging services. And I thought it was so fantastic and honestly brilliant of Leading Age to have not just people who are working in this space, but a resident on. Because in my experience, and I come from the senior living industry, it's where I worked last before launching my own business. This just didn't seem like it was something that was important to people in aging services. And what I mean by this, I mean racial equity, racial justice, all things race and equality. It just did not seem to be on their radar. And so I wanted to have you on to talk about what it is that you and your friends and neighbors at Landis are really doing, not just to push the needle forward, because that's very important, but also to educate yourselves. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the way we started was back last June. After the murder of George Floyd. A lot of us throughout the country were shocked, but we felt we needed to do something. And in Lancaster, the nearby city, there was going to be a demonstration. There was a group of clergy, African-American clergy, and our congregation has been connected with that too. That was going to have a vigil. And because of COVID, we did not feel like we could go. We had been staying at home ever since March. And so my husband and I checked with other people on campus and decided to organize just a 10-minute prayer vigil. Yeah. And we sent the word around, and more than 80 people showed up. And after that, we felt like we had to do more than just that kind of a token event. So several of us started to gather, and we now have a steering committee that meets monthly, and we're trying to educate ourselves and to figure out what we can do beyond education. So that's how we started.
Yeah. So I love that for so many reasons, but one of the reasons I love it most is because you didn't just stop and saying, you know what, this might not be safe for us to go because of COVID. You and your husband and neighbors actually got together and said, no, we need to have our own vigil. The other thing I think is so important about that is, if you're comfortable and if you know the answer to this, tell us, what is the makeup, maybe the racial makeup of your community? Because I think that that's why this is also so important.
Well, the residents here at Landis Homes are 100% white. And
100%.
100%.
Yep.
And there are people on our steering committee who were attracted to living to Landis Homes, but not attracted by the fact that there's no diversity.
Yes.
And I have friends who are in a similar situation nearby, and we feel as though we're in this white bubble.
Yes.
And so that is a big challenge, and we recognize that we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think so. Historically, senior living is, even though they are communities for all, the racial makeup says to people of color, specifically Black folks, this is not for you. And so I think because of that, I think folks on teams, those who serve in senior communities, they themselves think, we have this ultra white community, these issues are not important to them. But what you just said is, we have a community 100% white, and we weren't comfortable with it. We knew that there were things that we needed to do. And then you all went a step further, because I know that you all encouraged the team members at Landis Homes. I think that they were affected by proxy. So I love that. And tell me what it is and how you were able to bring this together beyond that visual, because I think that right there was huge. And did you get some pushback?
Well, we didn't get pushback. I can say that because I know that the administration here has been aware of trying to, encourage more staff. And we do have some diversity in our staff, but it's more in the aides, some of the people that are providing care or working in laundry and dining and some of those things. Yeah. So we've had staff coming from other countries, from the Philippines, from Cuba, from other places. But where we are in this county, it's not that attractive to African Americans that live in cities. And we've been trying to encourage more diversity among the upper echelons of staff, as well as the board. And the director here, actually, we have a meeting set up in a couple of weeks with 4 of the top staff to tell us what they are doing to bring about more diversity and more inclusive aspects throughout the organization. One of the things I know they're doing is planning for apartment dwelling, a large building in the city of Lancaster, which they think will be more appealing to people that aren't white.
Yeah. So I love that too, because again, you didn't just stay in your bubble and say, you know what, me and my friends, this is how we feel about this. You actually are asking those in positions of authority, what are you doing to help? So here's the thing about senior living. I think people in the top tiers can pat themselves on the back and they can say, well, we actually are diverse. Our team members, this industry is very diverse, but this is what they don't tell you. That all that diversity that they love to tote about, first of all, you can, Google any senior living conference and look at the pictures and tell for yourself that it's not as diverse as they'd like to say. But also that diversity is usually people who are in hourly positions. Those are frontline workers. Those are people who are in housekeeping and dietary, and they're CNAs. And there's not a lot of diversity in corporate services. where there would be change. So I love that you all are pushing this, because again, I think for too long, many people in those corner offices who probably have never even worked in a community are saying, well, this isn't important to our residents. And you're saying, no, actually it is. So I love that. So tell me how it is that you put this group together, and tell me what it is that you're working on right now.
Well, I got to meet some of the people living here at Landis Homes that I didn't know before. So we started at our first meeting, another couple and another man joined, and then we started saying, who else is working at this? Who else would be interested? And so by the time we'd met about 4 times, there were 9 of us that were sharing our ideas and making sure that the president here at Landis Homes was informed of what we were doing. So what we started with was organizing a group that could have a conversation by email and by Zoom, because of course we weren't allowed to meet in our meeting rooms due to COVID. So we started by educating, and there are so many opportunities to do that. And sometimes Zoom is even a plus for us, because we were able to cooperate with other staff that plan activities and say, now during Martin Luther King, during January with Martin Luther King's holiday, we would like to have some special emphasis. And so we had a couple of movies that we didn't have to plan ourselves. We could just kind of recommend them.
Right.
And we also have classes that we can take here called Pathways for Lifelong Learning. There are retired people that teach courses. So we organized several of the courses there that would expose more folks. So we found ways to plan to do things that would give special emphasis to our work. We've got a library now, a special focus shelf where people can share their books. And we're trying now to do more than just educate ourselves. We looking at a specific issue. And at our last meeting, we said, one of the things is fair state funding for public schools. Pennsylvania is one of the worst. And the Lancaster City students, when COVID hit, private donations gave funding to a lot of students so that they would have devices. Yeah. But the difference between the poorest and richest schools is so huge. And there is something that we could do to encourage the legislators. There is a bill that we would like to see passed. So we're thinking, how can we organize letter writing and other ways to do this? So try to become more active and have people also come to visit us. We've got plans this fall to have an emphasis on each of the several different groups of congregations in our area. So there'll be the Black churches in Lancaster, the Asian churches, the Latino churches, and having people come onto campus and tell us their history.
So partnerships is what I'm hearing you saying. But something that you said that I love too is that you said it wasn't just about us educating ourselves and not even educating, our like-minded friends and residents and neighbors in this community, but you were action forward. And I think that's the thing we have to do is, I think oftentimes, especially when the scales are falling off for white folks, they want to ingest all this information, which is really good, but then they hoard that information and they only share it with, the people who already think like them. And I'm like, who does that help though? It might make you feel really good, but who does it help? How does it help push anything forward? So I love that you all are doing things. You're talking about how you can affect legislation. You're talking about how you can affect education in your community, how you can make it more equitable. So I want to ask you this. You have been a lifelong volunteer. You were telling me that you lived a time. Did you say you lived at a time in the Congo?
Correct.
Yeah. So you sort of understood all of this. Even if the scales were falling off for you in new ways, you were kind of comfortable with learning this. And I want to know for you, has it been challenging, and how challenging has it been to really learn and to know what you didn't know? And the same for your group. What has that been like? Because I think what happens is people get so wrapped up in it being uncomfortable that, they just would rather not learn. They pretend it, doesn't happen. It happens in other neighborhoods. It happens with other families. No, your family is probably pretty racist, your friendships are probably, your friend circles are probably pretty racist. What has it been like confronting that in the people that you care about and in yourself?
Well, it's definitely not comfortable, and it's definitely a potential conflict with other people, because even my sister and I don't see things the same way. We've had different experiences, and I think for a lot of people to look at what history has led to what we have today, really understanding what has been the long-term effects. Where I grew up in Manitoba, I never saw a Black person ever until I don't know how old I was. And I sent a picture one time to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was looking at a picture I'd taken, and she said, "Oh, the women they all wear black stockings." And I said, "No, they're not wearing stockings." "Oh, okay." Because we just had a different frame of mind. And but we did in where I grew up, we did have Indigenous people, Native people, and I know they face discrimination.
Yep.
So I know that there's racism that's unrecognized, and it's always comfortable when you're on the top and have all the advantages. And we think we've worked for them and therefore we deserve them, and then don't realize that, whoa, we've had a lot given to us that we just took for granted.
Yeah. Say that, Marilyn. Yes. I think that so there are going to be some differences, right? Because you are from Canada, and the Canadian experience is different from the US experience as it is around the world. But I think we have an understanding about, what privilege is and what it looks like and what white supremacy is, no matter what continent you live on. And that a lot of us, even Black people and other people of color, we uphold that white supremacy because it has been taught. So to unlearn that, and not just to unlearn it, but to share it, not only can it be uncomfortable for those people who are learning it, but just in sharing it, right, can be uncomfortable. So how did you and your husband and other people in your group, how did you all push past that? How do you all sort of try to have these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable? How are you starting them? How are you having them? And I'm going to put this question up because I think that this one will be especially important for people, who are watching silently, who won't say anything, especially those folks who are in the aging services, but they need to hear it. And I think it would be helpful to hear again from a resident, this is what's been working for us, and not just a resident. Older folks, because again, I think younger generations have a notion about older people. And that notion is they are who they are. They grew up how they grew up. Granny might be racist. We just gonna have to let her die that way. Grandpa always says things like that. Don't interrupt him. That's just how he is. And that is not okay. Everyone can learn, no matter what age you are. So what has that been like for you, having those kinds of conversations?
Well, I think it's helped a lot that there are people like on our steering committee who recognize their privilege. And we have devotionals every day. And one of the people who gave the devotional on Martin Luther King Day is someone who he recognizes his privilege. He grew up in a prominent family. He's white, he's tall, he's had a lot of positions of power. And he recognizes that women have had less power in the church, that people of other skin colors have had less power. And recognizing that. And he said, racism clings to me like lint to a wool sweater.
Mm.
And, we have to just recognize that. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that we're going to constantly have to work at. But
Yeah.
helping one another recognize it. Hey, that joke was actually racist. Or, that term is really racist.
Yeah. Yeah. And just learning. And then I think too, just getting used to the uncomfortableness of it and just calling it and just saying it. Even if it doesn't feel good. So what do you say to people, especially to younger generations, especially to people who are in positions of power, who are younger, who just say, you know what, it's really not important to older people? What do you say to them?
I guess I'd like them to really listen to those stories of those older people and to respect those stories, but to also probe a little bit. How did you come to be where you are? Maybe they had things given to them that they didn't recognize. If they thought that they achieved this all on their own. It's like that thing that's if you're starting a race, and some people are always starting several steps behind or several steps forward. Like, where would you position yourself in that?
Yeah. So I think about that too, because what you're talking about is privilege. And I think people often get privilege intertwined with white supremacy in a way that does not allow them to really understand what privilege means. And it's not merit. It's not, it has nothing to do with, what you have done and what you have gone through in life. I just try to explain that it is literally your skin color that gives you privilege. That's it. So I am privileged in a lot of ways. I grew up in a 2-parent household. I was able to, go to school, not just through high school, but, beyond. But my privilege is still nothing, compared to a white man, especially a white man in the US. You can be mediocre as all get out, and you can still do some things that I would never be able to do, even though I'm talented and all of that good stuff. So I want to ask anyone who's watching if they're comfortable, and I hope you are, but I know a lot of people will probably just be listening. I want to know if you are challenging racism, sexism, etc. in your circles. And I want to say what challenging it is not, because this is what happens to me a lot. Okay, Marilyn, I'm going to tell you personally what happens to me. Well-meaning people, friends, family, neighbors, sometimes people I don't know, etc., etc. They send me links. They send me video. They tell me about books. Sometimes they gossip to me about people in the neighborhood and in business who are racist. And I say to them, please stop. Please stop, because that doesn't make you an ally, and it doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for me. Do that. Because what do you expect me to do with this information? Because guess what? I already know. I already know. And so what I tell them is, if you yourself are not going to be willing to speak up about it, don't tell me about it, because now I feel some kind of way about you. I feel some kind of way about you. When you constantly are telling me about this stuff, but you aren't doing anything about it, you want me to do something about it. And you think you just did something. How do you help people realize and recognize that very, very fine line between passively supporting racial justice and actually being part of change? Do you have a solution for that? Is there something that you look for?
Are you asking your other listeners right now? Or you want to?
Well, I'm asking you.
Okay.
I'm asking you.
Well, I think it's recognizing always what benefits I'm getting and acknowledging that. This past summer, I traveled in Ontario, Canada. I was by myself. My phone had died and I didn't know how to charge it. and I didn't know how to get to my destination, and it was a remote part of the province. So
Anxiety.
and I was to go directly to my destination.
Okay.
So at one point, I was going up and down this road trying to find where to go, and the numbers system was very confusing. I stopped in this little town. There was nobody in sight, nobody. And I finally just got out of my car with my mask on, and somebody drove past, and I just bowed. And eventually somebody stopped and took his phone, and he helped me find where I should go. And I'm telling everyone that I had a privilege as an older, white, small woman. If I had been my son, except he was black, if I'd been a big black young man,
yep,
I don't know what I would have done.
Yep. Not only would you not have known what you have done, doing anything, flagging someone down could have been dangerous.
Right.
Could have been dangerous. So I'm so glad that you use that as an example, because I think it's really important for people to understand that. So I'm going to put up, go ahead, Marilyn.
I think it'll be important for me to let my grandchildren know that they have privileges that they don't recognize. If we go into a store and touch something and don't buy it, or if we, various kinds of things, not everybody would be looked at in the same way, and to really be aware of that.
Yep. Marilyn, you know what? Your children and your grandchildren are so lucky to have you, because I have tried to have this conversation with white women in my life who I don't know, maybe they do get it and they don't know how to talk about it. And I'm talking about close women. Okay. I told you my husband is white. I have tried to have this conversation. My kids, we live right down the street from a 7-Eleven. All right. My son is 15 years old. We just started sending the kids to the 7-Eleven by themselves, maybe a couple years ago. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have this conversation with them. When you get to that 7-Eleven, you're going to buy these batteries for your game, for your controller. If you cannot find the batteries, don't go rummaging. Don't go rummaging. You need to go straight to the front and ask them where it is, because you don't get to rummage. You don't get to look like you might be stealing, because you walking through the door, it is assumed that you might be. So I'm so glad that you said that, Marilyn. And I'm so glad that you said, I'm teaching my grandchildren. White women, listen to me. There's a reason why sometimes your kids' friends, their black friends, don't come to your house. It's not because they don't like you. It's not because they don't feel like, I don't want my kids to be friends with. It's because my child might not be safe at your house when your kids and my kids walk around the neighborhood. I need you to know that. And if you don't know that, let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it. I'm so glad that you said that, because too many people, I think they don't understand that, Marilyn. So thank you for that too. I'm going to put up this comment really quick from Judy. Hi, Judy, if you're still here. She says, confronting family is very hard. And yet so necessary. I have to remind myself that their denial or anger is not my responsibility. I am morally obligated to speak out against it. Thank you, Judy. Yes. 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 If you say to yourself, I am a safe person, I am a friend to the Black community, and you are not speaking up when your other friends and family say the most vile things, and you laugh it off, or, you pretend you didn't hear it, or you just ignore it, you're not being a friend to anyone. What you're doing is you're being a coward. And just say that part. And then how do I get out of that? Because I don't want to be a coward. Let's start there. I don't like feeling like I'm powerless. What can I do? And I love that Judy said, it's not her responsibility, how they feel about it. That's how I had to start feeling. it's not my responsibility if you get mad when I say you said this and it's not okay. I think this is such an important conversation, and I want to get back to how it is that you even started to have this conversation in your community where, once again, you said is 100% white, and you all are doing the very hard work. Why don't you tell me about some of the books? Because you said what happens sometimes is that you all have sort of like a mailing list, right? You ask people, you want to be part of the group? And Marilyn, tell everybody how many people are in this group.
We have a mailing list group now of just over 60 people. Mm-hmm. And so we can, if we read something and we want to send a link and tell about something, we can do that. And so we can, I know that there are people that have worked in other, a lot of educators on our campus and a lot of people who've lived in other places. And so this has been something that they're concerned about. Some of them were reluctant to move here because it was not diverse enough. Yeah. So, So one of the people that joined our steering committee had taught courses on racism in the past, but he said, I'm tired. But I think we need to encourage each other, and people that have been working at this for a long time. I can see why it would be discouraging, because it seems sometimes as though there's just not been progress. So it is encouraging when others start to pick up and say, yes, we really do believe this is important. And I think George Floyd's death was just so shocking that it kind of shook us out of our apathy, perhaps.
Yep. So I love that you said that too. Like, this work is very tiring. It's very exhausting. I feel myself angry a lot of time. I feel myself hurt a lot of time. I am not always immersed in the news cycle. I am not always immersed in mainstream media. Because I do this kind of work, I'm talking about racism almost every day. Like, that's what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. And that's what I chose to do. And I choose no other thing to do right now, because I want to make a mark on the world too, right? I want people to change. I want the next generation to be better. But man, it's tiring. It is tiring. So to have other people pick up the baton, and not just other people, to have white people pick up the baton, to have older white people pick up the baton. Woo! That's something that I think, at least for my generation, I'm 42 years old, I haven't seen. I grew up in a very diverse community. I have people in my life who I know really love me, who really care about me, who are concerned about what's going on, who I'm sure have conversations quietly and privately. But to them, I say, pick up the damn baton, pick it up, because you can say something to your white peers in literally the same words that I say, but when it comes from you, it comes differently. They hear it differently, and it moves them differently. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you said that. So tell me about some of these resources that you share with people who are on that 60-person mailing list. And by the way, these are all people that opted in. These aren't people, sometimes I'm in business, and sometimes, we throw people on a list that they have not asked to be on. And then we just hope that they will want to stay there. Okay. That's what happens in business. But that's not what happened with you. You all asked people, do you want to be a part of this group on racial justice? And they said yes. So what are some of the things that you are sharing in this group, Marilyn? What kind of resources?
Well, we did recommend several movies in January that I think were eye-opening for a lot of the people who had been more, who really hadn't traveled very much out of the county. Driving While Black is a movie that, was very sobering. People left, kind of saying, oh, that was really intense. Mm-hmm. And, or the movie Harriet, more, pretty recent one, just to go back and look at the history. Now, there's been a lot of books published just in the last year or two
Yep.
And so I keep on expanding our reading list. And actually, I'm part of a book group that's this Tuesday, we're going to be talking about the book Caste.
Move it over just a little bit more,
There
right?
we go.
Yes. I'm reading that book right now too. And you know what? That hasn't been a hard read for me, Marilyn. Like, I have to read that, stop. And I've had this book now. Like, I can go through a book. This has been a slow read for me because it's heavy.
It is very heavy.
It's heavy. So I'm glad that you're reading that book. Have you read the book that's called So You Want to Talk About Race? It's with Ijeoma Oluo.
I have not read that one. I've read White Fragility and a whole lot of others.
Yeah.
And
we might have to exchange book lists, Marilyn.
Oh, I'd be glad to send you my list.
Yeah, and I'll send you mine too. Yeah, okay. But I can tell we have some of the same books on our list, which I think is so important.
Yeah, the person, in terms of what's valued in the caste system, there is a statement that I think for people like us in the retirement community, it says that in North America, we belong to the last caste of the human cycle, that of old age. People who are among the most demeaned of all citizens in the Western world, where youth is worshipped to forestall thoughts of death. A caste system spares no one.
A caste system spares no one. So if you in your life have never been a person who has been ostracized, who has been discriminated against, with any luck, one day you will be an older person, and baby, you will understand.
Yeah.
Because you know what? At least here in this country, in the U.S., in the same way that we say we value teachers and other folks, we say how much we cherish our elders, but we really throw them away too. And so as much as I fight for, racial equality, man, I can't stand ageism either, because there's something to be said about intersectionality, right? So imagine being not just a Black woman, but a Black woman with an illness, and a Black woman who not just has her skin and her illness to contend with, but she's also older.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So, Marilyn, I so appreciate you for all the wisdom that you brought today, but more than that, for the work that you are doing in Pennsylvania, and hopefully beyond, because of our conversation today. I appreciate you. I really do.
Well, thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for accepting my invitation. So I want to ask you, I do have another comment. Judy, I'm going to put up Judy's last one, and then I want to ask you something. Judy says, as white people, we have to admit that we've all been embarrassed or defensive at different times when we realize what we did or are doing is based in bias or racism. When we know better, we do better. Love this discussion. Sounds much like our Grozil group. Thank you both. Thank you, Judy. Let me tell you something. People will say, like, how do you know when someone is an ally? And I'm always like, sometimes I don't know, but one way I will know for sure. Like, sometimes I'm like, are they? I don't know. Judy's got skin in the game. I know that. So I'm very careful about where I go and what I do now and who I'm with. I've always been, I will say in my older age, I've been more aware of that than I was in my youth. I'll go anywhere with anybody, but it's different for me now. And I always weigh seriously, if I'm in a situation with these people, are these people going to defend me, or are they going to step back? And Judy is a person who I'll always ride with, because I know that Judy is not a person who's going to pretend like she didn't see it. She's not going to pretend like she didn't hear it. And I appreciate that. And those are the only people, hear what I'm saying, those are the only people that I want to spend my time with, because I need to feel safe in whatever circles I'm in. So Judy, I appreciate you too. And thank you for joining us today. So, Deidre Owens, look at that. Hi, Deidre. She says, reading Caste. She's reading it right now, too. So that's the book that we were just talking about, too, Deidre. And yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy. I think anytime you are learning, especially as an adult, something for the first time that maybe you should have learned in school that you didn't, man, it's shocking to the system. It is. And it hurts. It hurts. So what are you doing, Marilyn, to sort of debrief? Because of course we said like this kind of work, and we said this on our leading age panel. I said this kind of work that we're doing, any kind of work towards racial equality, towards justice, any kind of justice work, it is not just rooted in love, it's rooted in trauma. It is. So how do you, come down? How do you debrief? How do you make sure that you don't, like for me, how I feel sometimes, stay angry, stay on the defense, stay ready? Because I stay ready. I stay ready, Marilyn. But that's not always a good way to be either. So what do you do? How do you have fun?
Well, most of my fun in this past year has been through some type of exercise, and our pool is open again. We have a pool, and when I get into that water, it just feels like, oh, it's like God's love is around me, and I could just relax, and I just swim laps, and there's, it's kind of like I can pray and swim, and we live on a campus that has a little bit of woods and lots of flowers this time of year. So just walking out. And I also have done a lot of biking in my life. And so I can go out on my bike. So just doing that, I haven't been visiting people face to face very much. And just doing those kinds of aerobic activities is calming for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I've been enjoying being outside. We're in Michigan and it just now started warming up. Our COVID numbers are crazy though. So I really don't do a lot of face to face with people, and I haven't in a little more than a year now. My family and I were sick, and I'm just like cautious. I am. When I can get outside, I fancy myself, an amateur bird watcher. So if I can get outside and just hear the birds and see flowers, and it does my spirit some good too. It really, really does. So I think that's really important. So Marilyn, hold on. Let me put up this last comment, and then I'm going to ask you one last thing. Deirdre, many of our seniors are from other countries and had to deal with these caste structures due to their origin of country. Yeah, so that's the other thing too, is sometimes, especially here in the US, and I think a lot on the West Coast and on the East Coast, maybe not so much in the Midwest, you have a lot of seniors who are immigrants, who are living in senior communities, and it's hard for them too. Because, Americans, we think the American way is the only way, and we think it's the best way. And, we don't like when people tell us that it's not. It's not, y'all. It's not.
It's true.
So we have to learn a new way. And really the way forward is to learn our history, which I am doing at 42 years old. And man, it's painful. It's painful. So yeah, we just got to treat each other better. Now, one last thing I was going to ask you. Let me see. I might have lost my train of thought. That was good, Deirdre. Thank you. Way forward. What do you think? First of all, are you comfortable with me asking you your age, Marilyn?
Sure. I'm 70, almost 72.
72.
Oh, right. 71, almost 71.
Don't give yourself an extra year now. I mean, I know you excited, but no, I think that's awesome and that's beautiful. So again, age notwithstanding, anyone can learn a new way. Anyone can explore how they could be a better citizen to the world, right? So what's a good starting place? That's what I wanted to ask you. Not just for other seniors, for anybody that might be watching this today or tomorrow or whenever. Maybe they'll watch it a year from now. I don't know. What is one thing you think that people who are worried about all of this, who are just literally petrified of, saying anything to anyone, what's one thing they can do to sort of move the needle forward? Because it's everybody's responsibility.
I think it's willing to take a risk that I could say something, and to be sincere in recognizing when I do make a mistake, when I've said something that was hurtful and offensive, to own that and to say, I need to do better. Thank you for helping me do better. Yeah. And part of the problem here is that we haven't had the opportunity to talk with people like you or people that live in the city and and to learn. We've been so limited because we couldn't bring people onto campus, but to take advantage of opportunities when they arise, and to start to build relationships.
Yeah. So you use that word risk, to take a risk. I think that's a good starting place too. If I can think back, like, man, I've just been a coward in some ways, in so many ways, but especially before I started my own business, just in the workplace, just cowardice. And I'm not proud of that because I had opportunities to speak up and I didn't. And so I'm talking to all the cowards out there. You don't have to stay a coward. You don't.
There's some things that we're kind of dreaming about. Don't know if they're feasible or not. But we were saying, wow, wouldn't it be something if we could take a trip to Atlanta and visit some of the museums and go with a group of people from Lancaster, maybe some young Black students? Would that be a partnership that was worthwhile if we could, help them pay for that, or, get it, find a way to have those conversations and to meet each other.
Yeah.
And we don't know if that's going to be possible, but we do plan to take a trip to Washington, D.C. to maybe this fall when things open up. So
yeah, you know what? My family and I had planned on doing that too, but all the museums are closed. But you know what? There's that intersectionality again. I love that you said a group of students. So that's the other thing, is like intergenerational activities are so important because we learn from our elders, but our elders also learn from younger generations. So again, Marilyn, thank you so very much for your time today. Keep doing the work. Keep sharing the work. Keep resting. I will do all of those things as well because we need to rest if we are to continue working. Any last minute thoughts that you want to share?
Just to say, it's been a great opportunity. I thank you very much.
I thank you too. And Marilyn, let's stay in touch because you know what? I've been doing this series now since maybe late summer, and most of the time I'm talking to people that I already know. But sometimes I'm talking to people like you who I've, only met recently. But they are people who I want to stay in touch with and who one day I'm hoping to meet in real life. So Marilyn, you're on that list, and I hope we will get an opportunity to do that. So thank you so much. And everybody come back next Sunday. As always, I don't remember who's on. I don't even know if I have anybody scheduled yet, but hopefully you'll be here. So we'll see you then, and enjoy your week. Bye.